Just so you know, my background is not in computer science, but it's in public administration. That's a study of government. However, my research focuses on how governments and organizations implement technology. I even built my own AI tools to help with some of my research that I've conducted. So this background provides a very unique perspective to how technology is used and implemented within society. Now, I've done this discussion a number of times, and with every audience, when I say artificial intelligence, half the audience kind of leans forward in excitement, you know, because AI is so new, while the other half of the audience kind of cringes at the concept. So, artificial intelligence, or AI, presents lots of challenges when discussing its integration into our business and our daily lives, as with most developing technologies. These challenges may be the source of some of the stress and apprehension felt as these tools become more predominant in our daily lives. In this talk, we'll look at how we can successfully use AI through a better understanding of what it is and one of the bigger challenges AI faces. This may surprise some of you, but AI has been around a lot longer than most people realize. The first proof of concept for an artificial intelligence program was presented in 1956 at the Dartmouth College Artificial Intelligence Conference, otherwise known as the Dartmouth Workshop. This has been seen as the introduction to artificial intelligence to the scientific world. Now, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that everyone here has used AI recently, maybe even today. I know, there's a lot of doubt, looks at you like, no. But that's true. I think I base this on, this is because the first publicly available AI was created in 1971 by Ralph Gorin from the Stanford Artificial Laboratory. This AI was named SPELL, S-P-E-L-L. Now, can anybody make a guess on what this AI was used for, what it was created for? Spell check, yes, is a spell check. This AI, this early AI, was very good at guessing what you intended to type. Now, if you can see it, this here is a picture of 7 paper rolls of paper, 7 rolls of paper. This is what held this early AI, this early AI-based spell checker, just 7 rolls of paper held all the programming code. The emergence of personal computers has created a demand for AI tools like spell checkers that are used by everyone. If you wrote an email today or sent a text, there's a pretty good chance you employed an AI-based spell checker. So the question concerning AI is not whether or not these tools should be introduced into society, but when will they be accepted and for what jobs? So we have touched on a few different types of AI here, products. However, there are many tools used by AI of various complexity depending on what job that it's being used for. These up here that you're seeing are a number of different tools, but let's just look at a couple of them. The neural networks, right here, the neural networks, which these attempt to duplicate brain patterns using machine learning systems. You might see these in generative AI tools like ChatGPT, or the ones that that create pictures or texts or videos, but also in some everyday applications. Like smartphone cameras employ neural networks when you take a picture and it puts a funny sort of filter on your face, like a clown face or something. Facebook, when you load up a picture and it recognizes the face and the name, and it gives it the name of the person, these are all employing neural networks. We also have natural language processors, which look to interpret and understand communications using words that are relevant to the audience. That might be something that you're talking about with the phone, that it's picking up that communication. You can see these in actions with virtual assistants like Siri or Alexa. You can also see them in the chatbots used on customer service websites or email spam filters all use natural language processors. So these are just a few examples of the AI tools that may be used in some of the various tasks that we encounter. AI tools, the AI tools that I created for my research use some of these things that we talked about, like natural language processors, to accomplish some very specific tasks. At times, these tools compare words and phrases looking for similarities and different contexts. Other times, they were developed to engage with people, asking questions and coming up with solutions. These are just an example of what I was talking about earlier, that in which AI is more than just a computer assistant that can create text and videos and images. It can also be used as a tool to understand our world, or in other words, an intelligence augmenter. These tools can push boundaries in the traditional ways that we look to understand our world. This is what AI can bring to our lives, the ability to look beyond and try different approaches that challenge established methods with the hope that we can see things in new and different ways. So let's conclude with one of the bigger challenges the bigger challenges faced by artificial intelligence, and that's the perception of bias. This is also one of the more interesting topics to discuss when we're discussing AI. We have seen AI being used in our lives and other practical matters or practical ways for many decades. However, we're starting to observe that these technologies are not foolproof and have issues that are at times quite unwanted. One of the more well-known cases of bias is when AI has been implemented in facial recognition programs. The National Institute for Standards and Technology found that these programs produced false positives up to 100 times, depending on what algorithm was used and the color of the subject's skin. This tendency for bias can be seen in text analysis as well. The company Amazon created an AI program to automate the review process for job resumes. This program was halted the next year when they recognized obvious bias, particularly gender bias in this case. This program, the AI hiring tool was programmed to assign a score to the resumes based on a library of past applicants over a 10-year basis. This time-based data set was used to train the AI to determine the best candidates. However, due to the industry's male bias towards hiring, the program learned to prefer men since they were being hired more. This led the AI program to determine any resumes with female-associated words or phrases to be less desirable and would consequently lower that resume's score. While this was obvious bias, it was not intentional. The program was simply doing what it was told to do through the algorithm while using the data provided. Much like the issues with facial recognition technology, Amazon's AI failure was the result of a poorly designed algorithm that were not able to integrate with the human element of the data set. Bias is only one concern when we think of AI. Job displacement, privacy risks, and the potential for misuse all have a seat at the table when we're discussing AI. These topics, like bias, have no easy answer. It'll take time to sort through how AI is going to impact our lives as it unfolds into our society. Now, due to the time constraints of this discussion, I chose to focus on bias. This is because it reflects our community, for better or worse. It is a challenge that we can recognize and learn from as we begin to understand AI. So this is where we enter the picture when we're discussing AI, and we want to determine its success. The AI tools that are being developed are not inherently biased. They simply magnify the bias that's already present within our community. We need to be aware of these types of limitations found in our digital tools as we see a greater variety of AI entering into our lives. There is a lot of potential for AI to improve productivity, efficiency, and our overall well-being. However, we need to be actively involved in this technological advancement. Whether you are for AI or against AI, it is here. These tools are here, and it is not, and they're not going to be leaving anytime soon. So now I give these talks to not necessarily change your opinion on artificial intelligence, but to hopefully provide you with a better understanding of where it came from and a small glimpse of where it might be going. AI is not going to be disappearing. I encourage you to continue to be curious. Don't be afraid to experiment with AI and look for ways to communicate your concerns. So thank you very much for this time. I really enjoyed speaking with you, and I think we're going to talk about it a little bit longer.
You can stand in the hot seat if you want. So it's up to you, but we'll do about 10 minutes of round table. So
okay. What do you want to do? Do you want me to sit or do you want to?
Well, let's get you on a bench. Hold on here. Here we go. We'll do it like a real round table here. Okay. More like a round stool, but got it. All right. So one of the things that I've been thinking about, we've been thinking about this for a long time, is I think what we are fearful of is not necessarily the tools in our pocket or in our phone, but the ways that people look at AI. So we tend, because of pop culture, like Terminator and other movies, Data from Star Trek, we tend to make AI more than just a tool. We tend to go beyond that and make it almost like either a pet, something that is alive. I'm sorry, I totally offended the dog. Totally offended the dog. It's okay. It's all right.
Some pets are not AI.
Yes. And even going so far now, I heard a news story about this today, about how some people are using AI for companionship. So I don't think the fear is in the tools per se, but in moving towards ascribing to AI or the tools of AI, the word is anthropomorphization, where you give human qualities almost to the point of spiritualizing it to a face on the screen, or even now a robot, to the point where we're blurring lines of humanity and these things, and I don't think it's intentional. I think we've just grown up in a pop culture world that has taught us to say, oh, robots have rights. I, Robot was Isaac Asimov's book a long time ago, which explored in the 50s and 60s this idea is if a robot can decide and make decisions and learn, then what kind of rights or sentient kind of boundaries does it have? Star Trek explores that. So my first question to you is, what is the threat of that? And as Christians, how do we keep a proper perspective between how we look at human and human dignity and kind of this imposition of these kind of companioning or coupling of AI in our lives? And there was the story I heard today was that there are students now saying, oh, I'm texting with someone online. And the person says, oh, who is it? And it's like, oh, it's, Janet. Well, Janet's an AI bot. It's not, there's not somebody on the, so when we think of AI, I think when we're scared of it, I think we move in that direction. So there's your first question.
Okay. Yeah, you bring up a lot of good points. And one of the reasons for this presentation that I just gave is that I purposely didn't want to wrap too much of the big AI that you hear a lot about right now, and a lot of people are using the chat GPTs, the Google Geminis. I wanted to make sure that I kind of highlighted that AI has been around for a lot longer than most people realize, and you can use AI for more than just the generative AI that's already out there. Because I don't think it really is an accident that we are humanizing the AI, because the AI, these popular AIs, these large language model AIs, these generative AIs that most people hear about, they're made that way. They're made to sound human, to build that trust and that bond between people, and that is going to be that's going to be one of the challenges that we have to sort through. That's going to be one of those things that, how far do you want technology to enter our lives? Because it's now, we saw it with the media technology, radio and TV came around, and that really entered our lives, and it became a driving force in our lives and a controlling force in some cases. Now we're seeing something that's getting a lot more personal. And it's purposely designed to make connections, and not necessarily in a bad way. I mean, some of these connections can be very healthy. It can really help people that do have issues with making connections, are actually able to talk to somebody that does help. So it's those are one of the challenges that we have to work through. And when it comes to your faith, that's one that I don't know if I can answer for you. That's not in my wheelhouse. What I talk about, what I concern myself out with is the way government deals with it, and through government, our community deals with it, because all of us have to deal with our government. And when government starts using AI a lot, how is that going to impact you? Which is very similar to what you're talking about, which is more when we start talking about how AI impacts faith and religious belief. Well, it's very similar to what I think you're going to have to deal with and wrestle with. And
throw it back to me.
Yeah. But you're talking about how the professor has to now deal with the AI. We were talking about that a little bit, how educators have to deal with AI, and how students and academia is dealing with AI. I just heard a story recently on how pastors were integrating AI to the point of actually having the AI create sermons for better or worse outcomes. And they're experimenting with it. Like I said, they're curious and they're experimenting with it. I believe in this case, the congregation was like, no, we're not going to deal with that. They cut that off fairly quick.
I did listen to that podcast. This was something that was on a different NPR story last week, and Dr. Trautman brought it to my attention. What some mega churches are doing, because you have these big churches with thousands of members with very little staff, because costs are different now with inflation, is that now some mega churches are using AI not just to write sermons or do research, because you can do like Bible research, but to build platforms to where if you're having a crisis, you can go online to the church website, say, I'm depressed and, I'm just having a really hard time with, the loss of my husband. And an AI-generated image will come and counsel you. So they're using this for spiritual and psychological counsel, obviously not professional,
yeah.
but pastors aren't professional licensed counselors most of the time either, because we do referrals. So some churches are even taking it the next step further to where they have Bible studies led, and in some cases this counseling service, just for intermediate, hey, the pastor will be with you in 24 hours, but let me tell you, and then it gives the AI answer and provides a stopgap. So I don't know if you have any comments about that.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a great example of how AI is integrating into our daily lives where it wasn't before. And you're seeing that as well in government. I'm actually working with a team to develop an AI that's going to be able to administer a survey to determine the level of need for housing. Which was something that was done by a human before, but the system is so overwhelmed that there's a backlog, there's a very large backlog to this. So these are and much like the mental health issues, there's more need than there is people to be able to provide it. So these are examples of AI tools that can be implemented to help alleviate some of the suffering that's out there in a positive way. So it's a way to look at AI in a perspective that is beneficial. And you can see how it's a pretty intimidating technology that's coming at us, and it's coming at us pretty quickly. But there can be some really amazing things that can happen from it as well.
Next question is government. You mentioned government, so this is the big one. So we've talked about, just briefly, and you can add to it or retreat from it, how a lot of the cuts as a result of the Department of Government Efficiency is not just to kind of cut waste and abuse, but also to see how AI platforms can fill the positions formerly held by very expensive and costly humans. AI never gets sick, doesn't have benefits, so you can pay AI. And several things have happened as a result of that. A lot of people lost their jobs that were critical. AI is in the stopgap again for some of those positions. I'll give you kind of an example of how this affected me personally, not in a bad way, just to give you an idea. I belong to the Indian River Astronomical Society, astronomy, and we were learning about in one of our meetings, I'm a nerd, one of our meetings about exoplanets. You know how they made news several weeks ago, oh, we found a planet, sort of like planet. Well, the way they do that is by studying what they call the transversive light. Okay, so this is NASA with studying transversive light, and as an amateur, you can go in and plug in numbers of the effects that a planet coming across a star affects the light from the star. Okay, so you plug in the numbers. Well, what you do is if you're looking to study transversive light, you go onto NASA, you go to transversive light, and the NASA video comes up blank because the word trans was in it. So AI, the Department of Government Efficiency, which is trying to get rid of DEI, took everything that had the word trans in it. So now you have this entire amateur kind of body of people which cost nothing to the government. Can't interface with NASA because the videos and the information has the word trans in it. So it's automatically deleted, all of this information. So I'm going to kind of wrap around to the Doge thing. If the people who are getting cut are replaced with AI, the money, somebody has to pay for that AI contract. And you mentioned briefly that some of the AI platforms are being provided by some of our more wealthier people like Bezos and what's the other, Zuckerberg. Meta is providing the AI. So a lot of people are losing their jobs while Zuckerberg is getting these government contracts, replacing people with AI, which may be helpful in some areas of waste and abuse, but in other ways, very harmful, not only to the people who are used to be employed, but also harmful to the public good. So as a government guy, when you look at that, how do you address that, and how do you respond to those kinds of things?
Okay, yeah, there's a lot of concern when it comes to when we're talking about job displacement because of AI. To start with this, I think it's important to recognize that this isn't the first time that we've had technological paradigm shifts. Where a new form of technology has come in and completely changed the working landscape. It's happened many times throughout human history, and even in this country. But we all seem to still survive. The country still goes on. So while we are definitely going to see, there's going to be difficulties as we bring this new technology in. I urge you to remember that we are resilient, that we will figure out ways to make this all work and make sure everybody is still happy and well-fed and well-paid at some point. But it doesn't mean that there aren't going to be hiccups along the way. Like what you're explaining with the mass removal of data and information that was out there before is being removed mistakenly. If you run fast, you're going to trip every once in a while. So as fast as you run, the harder you'll fall. So we will screw things up some because the government is moving pretty quick in this change. Will AI help us with this? Yeah, I think it will. We're forcing it to the forefront. The more we use the technology, the more we're going to be able to improve the technology. And it unfortunately is being led by the big names in the industry, but that's pretty common as well. That's something that always happens. The big names are always going to lead the front. AI is not as unachievable as a lot of people think. You don't have to be a Google or a Facebook to create AI. I am here to show that to you. You can create your own AI. If I can do it, anybody can do it for projects that are smaller and useful. But government is going to definitely have to figure out how we can implement this at a rate that is beneficial to achieving the goals that we want to achieve, but not at a higher risk that we're willing to take on.
And the last question, then we'll open up to the floor. So one of the other things I've learned in the last few weeks is that you don't get something for nothing. And what I mean by that is AI just doesn't come to us because of some cloud. There are actual processing centers that contain physical, whatever it is, computers. And these physical computers demand a lot of energy. And these massive processing centers not only require a lot of energy, but also require a lot of space. So there's an environmental impact. So the more we rely on AI, the bigger these processing centers. And that has environmental, ecological impacts, because you're absorbing land, as well as energy kind of needs. I think Indian River State College is investing in a major processing kind of AI initiative out in, I think it's Indiantown, if I'm not mistaken. So again, when you think of Indiantown, I think it's more agricultural. If they're building reprocessing, they're in the midst of agricultural kind of land, you can see how those on the margins are being impacted environmentally by these industrial kind of very large structures. So can you respond to that and help us clarify some of the direction or the impacts, positively or negatively, in that respect?
Yeah, and I touched on this a little bit, but it's good to understand that AI isn't just ChatGPT. AI there's a lot of different AIs, like I talked about spell checkers. You don't need the big processing power for a lot of these AIs. The ChatGPTs, the Geminis, the Azures, they're all they have these big processing centers to do this. And when you look at bigger jobs, then yeah, you're going to need bigger processors. However, I don't believe that AI is going to necessarily go in that direction always. To get a little bit technical, they talk about large language models, that's what your ChatGPT is. Those take an immense amount of storage, immense amount of computational power to do what it can do. But there's also small language models that are much more compact, that can do do jobs that are important, but are very specific and don't need as much. And I think you're going to see these being implemented a lot more in the background. And that's where AI is really going to thrive. Also saying that I don't think the ChatGPTs of the world are going to go away. I think that they're going to just simply improve. We have accomplished, the AI has accomplished so much in the generative AI in such a short time. And it's been 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 years that ChatGPT has first came out, and it has improved incredibly over that time, very quickly. We're going to see these issues improve. and get better, and the use for the power, the use for the resources is going to be brought under control as this technology continues to develop. So that's what I see. I see small use AIs being implemented more and more to handle jobs that we don't even think about. And then I see the technology for the bigger jobs to continue to improve as we move down this road.
All right, thank you. And thank you for entertaining my thoughts and musings. Well, it's your turn. We have plenty of time, but we do ask, if you ask a question, please ask a question. So, if you have a kind of a position or a statement, and there's no question, I will say, okay, what's your question? So we do want to honor Dr. Trautman and your time. So, all right, let's see. You're up.
Thanks. We could sit here all night and talk about examples of the good use of AI and the bad use of AI. Okay, they're both happening. Okay. An example of that is, I'm sure you're familiar with Sal Khan of Khan Academy. Does great things. I heard a lecture about him not long ago where he said how AI can be used beneficially in the classroom. He gave an example, I think it was a special ed teacher who just didn't have the hours in the day to give every student the attention they needed. But a robot could help, and AI would be important in taking a student past just a yes or no answer to what's going on in the background, okay? So those are good examples. But at the same time, we give examples where AI, you mentioned it, where robots could replace human beings, and then there's job loss. There's bad things too. So it seems to me the heart of the issue is to have systems in place that guide us through the proper use of AI rather than the improper use of it, okay? And so my question is, are you confident that these systems are in place, either at the governmental level, or maybe at the academia level, or maybe in the business community, to guide us through our development of AI? Because as you said in one of your slides, it's been around since, what, 1956, all right? Has anybody thought about how are we going to guide this process through?
Well, you have to hire him.
Yes, absolutely. Am I confident? Confident is not a word I use when I talk about AI, especially when we're talking about integrating it into our systems. Absolutely not. I'm not confident that those systems are in place. AI has increased its speed, even though we've been using it for a long time. It's increased its speed over the last 5-10 years, exponentially. And while we want to use it, we don't know how to use it yet. We don't have those systems in place. We don't have policies to regulate how they should work. We don't have strategies for integrating it to tell us what we should be using it for and what we shouldn't be using it for. We are not looking at a lot of those limitations that I talked about, like with bias and how AI is only as good as the data that we put into it. And if that data is not good data, well, you shouldn't be surprised when you get bad results. Things like the example you gave with
Professors,
put in the government website where you put in remove anything with the word trans in it. Trans is a pretty popular word in the government. Now, for a whole bunch of reasons and a whole bunch of services that the government has to provide and deal with. That wipes out a lot of information if you run with an AI to wipe it across the board without actually knowing those limitations of the system. So to answer your question plainly, no, they're not ready. And they need to start to get ready and start to develop these operational policies and strategies. And that's not just for the government, That's for every single organization, everything from the government to churches to businesses and to people like us. So.
Yeah, and that was the kind of the heart of the article today. The person being interviewed wrote about the professors, and she said, you know, what would be great for researchers is to look and see how many colleges have AI protocols for their professors, because they have them for students. They caught on to that real fast, especially with COVID. So then I said, Ben, Dr. Trautman, you need to get in on that. I'm always giving him work to do. You need to get in on that, because I'm sure there is, So yeah, I would, but that's why your consulting firm exists, because of that short gap. So thank you for your question. Young man behind you there? Yeah.
So I do have two questions. One kind of building off of what Ray just said. You talked about the perception bias earlier, but what about active, human malice and misinformation, and just human error, and how would we safeguard against that? I mean, talking about the NASA example, I wouldn't fault the AI for that. That was an active human command that the AI just took too broadly. But I'm also thinking, and I can't remember if this was 2023 or 2024, there was a news story about a virtual YouTube personality that was entirely AI-based. So it was a cartoon image with a automated voice and learning through online. They had to shut the thing down within an hour or so because the internet had convinced it to deny the Holocaust. How would you safeguard against that kind of misinformation with the AI? I mean, you talk about the professors. What if somebody teaching an AI says 0 is equal to 1, here's my math, and convinces the AI that that's the case?
Yeah, that's a good point. That AI, when we start looking to AI to be our expert, we need to recognize that we don't have control over where that AI is getting its information from. Now, this isn't anything new, though. When we look at anybody as an expert, we don't know where they're getting their information from, and we need to fact check it. There's still going to be a role for experts within whatever field the AI is trying to enter, and there's going to be need for people, for human eyes to be looking over this, to fact check it, to look to make sure that it is not producing outcomes and results that are not true. I see doctors. I think we were talking about this. Doctors are starting to use AI now, and they're starting to use AI to do notes and do diagnosis. We still need that doctor, though, to be looking over those results. We can't just allow AI to run with it at this point. Now, saying that we're still in the development phase of this, and we're still developing whether or not AI can produce accurate results, and how do we safeguard to ensure that we are getting the accurate results. AI is getting better at doing these sort of things. They're getting better at producing these sort of results and answering questions and creating documents and artifacts that are actually better than a lot of humans can do. So we're going to very quickly get to a point where we have to decide, what is the qualification for an expert? Is it accuracy or is it something else? When the computer can start to produce an answer that is statistically more accurate than humans can do, does the computer become the expert then? And those are things we're going to have to wrestle. Those are not easy questions. We may get to a point that it's an answer we don't want to accept.
Thank you. We have time for a couple more. We'll see. I saw this hand first. Yes, ma'am.
Hi. This is very, very interesting. Also pretty scary for me. One of the things, a long time ago when all this started, somebody had to come up with the data to put it in. So there was AI is billions and billions and trillions of data in it, and it's able to quickly sort through it. For me, it comes down to a matter of trust. Not so much whoever put it in, you have to trust that those people are doing the right thing. And you see so little of that nowadays, that people don't trust one another. They question everything. They don't read out everything. They come up with their own ideas based on I have absolutely no idea what. But so how do you prevent that? Who is going to oversee all of this?
So the question, just in case you could hear, is about trust and who's going to oversee some of this. Yeah. So.
Yeah, trust is the big word in AI here. Let me give you a short story, because this goes to what you're saying. This highlights how it's very hard to trust these large generative AIs that are out right now. I was using ChatGPT a couple of years ago. They've had various versions of ChatGPT. It goes 1.0, 2.0, 3.0, 4. I think it's up to 4.5. It may even be to 5 now. I was back at 3.0. I was giving demonstrations on how incredibly good ChatGPT was at doing inferential statistical math. It was really, really good at this. I would show. I had a whole system. I would show them how it could bring up all the statistics and how to process the statistics. Then I would show them on a system that was not AI generated. Here, look, we can do the same thing on these other systems, and they match up. It was really, really good. About a month after the last demonstration I had given, I was sitting with at the time, my youngest daughter, who was around 8 at the time. She was doing math, and we were going through some basic math, probably 5 times 5 sort of stuff. And we were doing this, and we'd finished it. I taught her how to do multiplication. Before I said, hey, look, we can do this even on ChatGPT, because I was pretty excited about ChatGPT back then. And I popped it open, and I said, hey, look, ChatGPT, how much is 5 times 5? And it came out to 4.8329. It's like, way off. I was like, whoa, what is it? Whoa, hold on. I was teaching PhDs how to use ChatGPT to do this really high-level statistics, and now you can't even do a basic math problem. Well, I had to do a little bit of research. It turned out that the developers had released a new version. They went to a 3.5 at this time. They changed the algorithm and changed the data that it was using because they wanted it to be more text generative. They wanted it to be more of an expert on creating text than it was on math, which it was programmed to do before. They don't need to tell me. I mean, I'm nobody, but they don't need to tell me that they're doing this, and I didn't follow it close enough. But here I was giving training to people saying, this is doing it perfectly. That is the kind of control we don't have. And it's the kind of control that we're going to have to figure out through systems that will ensure that these huge changes to our electron or digital expert doesn't happen without us knowing. Because if it wasn't just doing a demonstration, if it was something that really needed exact, precise results, and somebody changed it on us, well, then we're not going to get that. That could lead to bad
Spaceship
things.
is going to miss the moon.
Yeah, exactly, absolutely. Or an operation's going, something's going to happen in an operation, or money's going to get lost, or all sorts of things.
A bit outside.
So yeah, it's something that we need to worry about. If you didn't catch it yet, the word for the day here is challenge. There's a lot of challenges involved with this. There's a lot of growing that's going to have to happen. There's a lot of development that's going to have to happen. When it comes to trust, double check everything that AI is putting out. That's one nice thing about ChatGPT and Gemini. It'll typically give you where it's getting its information from. So you need to be able to go in there and check. Don't become complacent with it. Check to see, hey, is this making sense? So.
Well, I know there are questions out there, but we are out of time. So, what's that back there?
I just have a short one. You touched on some of the financial companies. I spent a lot of time in the financial world and the political world. And I'm trying to figure out what's going on. I'm invested quite heavily, and it's so political, and I'm just trying to figure it out. I wake up in the morning, I look at the stock market. I go to sleep at night, I can't sleep. I get up in the morning, I'm happy again. You know, I don't know if this pertains to any, but that's very important to a lot of us.
So your short question is what's going on? That leads to a very long answer.
Well, I'll tell you what, we are out of time, but Dr. Trautman will be here for a few minutes if you want to ask him a burning question. You're also more than welcome to get his business, you do have business cards. So you can ask him, he's just like one of us. You can always, email him, he's in town, he's around. So first and foremost, one of the things I failed to mention is Dr. Trautman, thank you for your time first. Secondly, thank you for your service to our country. He is a retired Coast Guard, so thank you.